Add to the consent agenda at 6A3, request permission to accept the assignment of a bus from MDOT for our Oxford University transit system. If you will add at 6C6, permission to hire 2 part-time drivers in environmental services. And if you'll add at 6D4, to accept donations to the Oxford Animal Resource Center. Is that it, Ashley?
That's all I had, yes, ma'am.
All right, any other additions? All right, then I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? A quick mayor's report tonight. We received our sales tax numbers from February this week. Sales tax was up 23.42% from last month and up 7.5% from last year. Sales tax came in at $1,113,163.67, and that is amazing. 2% was up 37.6% from last month, and up 1% from last year the same month, and came in a little over $390,000. Hotel motel was up 48% from last month and up 66% from the same month last year. That tells us that we are getting that midweek traffic that we hope to have, that are here for conferences and for business meetings, and you know, it's the weekday hotel room nights that make such a difference. The hotel motel tax money came in, the diversion was $70,322,000. We had a huge weekend in Oxford this past weekend, huge crowds and beautiful weather. So I am hopeful that our sales tax numbers will continue to move in that direction. We got a football season going on right now, it feels like. With this past weekend, with all the things going on and the M-Trade Park tournaments, we've got more M-Trade Park tournaments coming up in the coming weekends. This weekend we'll have the Morgan Wallen concert, and then the next weekend will be double decker. So it is, if you're trying to go out to eat and you live in Oxford, go on a Tuesday. So we are excited to welcome all these folks to Oxford, and pray for some good weather. I ask you to authorize the approval of the minutes of the special meeting on April the 1st and the regular meeting on April 2nd.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ask you to authorize the approval of all accounts for city departments.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ask you to consider the consent agenda with the 3 additions.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Donna, if you want to come up. Request permission to maintain the existing public liability insurance coverage requirement of $5 million for the Oxford University transit system.
MDOT has decreased, or FTA has decreased the liability insurance coverage requirement from $5 million to a minimum of $1 million. This kind of comes from a lot of the smaller transit agencies within Mississippi that have had a hard time paying that premium with a $5 million minimum. I have discussed this with Bill, is our insurance specialist with RETP Dev, and he was in agreement with me that we're not like all the little small agencies within Mississippi. We have a larger fleet. We run 30, 40-foot buses. My recommendation is that we keep it at the $5 million, but of course it is your decision to change it.
Make a motion that we keep it $5 million.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, Donna. Next, we'll have a second reading and public hearing for a proposed ordinance amending Chapter 102 to add Article 12, non-consensual trespass towing. When we introduced this proposed ordinance at our last meeting, I read numerous concerns from citizens, from emails that I've received, more of than I can count, but I read some of those at our last meeting, and as I mentioned, those were just a sampling of the complaints. I'm not going to go through those again or read any additional, but they have been entered into the minutes, as have the emails that we've received over the past 2 weeks, both for and against the towing ordinance. This ordinance is prompted by what is seen as more and more aggressive and unreasonable treatment of towing companies towards our citizens and students. Towing is necessary. Following parking regulations is necessary. There's certainly an argument to be made that if you park where you should, you won't have a problem. Unfortunately, it's been brought to our attention that the lack of signage and promotion is the cause of some of the issue, which is why this is addressed specifically in the proposed ordinance. Every property owner has the right to protect their parking areas from trespassers, but the violator should be treated fairly and the rates should be clearly stated. Chief McCutcheon read the entire ordinance at our last meeting, and we won't do that again, but if you'd like to look at it, it is attached online to our public agenda. And we have received a good amount of feedback on this ordinance, and I know that people are passionate about this on both sides. This is a public hearing. We are going to take public comment from anyone that would like to comment, and going to ask that it be civil and respectful. So, Chief or Board, do y'all have anything that you want to say? Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. We have just two minor adjustments. If you look under section 102-704, it's trespass towing of vehicles from private property, from private parking lots. It's the sign requirements. So the things that we cleaned up there after speaking with you guys and just looking at what we had, and also talking with Ben Requette to make sure we were within our ordinance. So what we want to make sure we do is the signs to not measure any, measure not less than 18 inches wide by 24 inches tall, and not more than 24 inches by 24 inches in size. Then 1, at all vehicle entrance and exits of the property. 2, at least one sign within 25 feet of the property's on-site business office. 3, at each access curb or vehicle access or within 5 feet of the public right-of-way line. If there's no curb cut or access barrier, then at least one sign for each of the 50 feet of frontage road on the public street. In any multi-unit residential areas, at least one sign at the entrance to each restricted parking area, and at least one sign within each restricted parking area for every 20 parking spaces. And so kind of got that from our land development code to make sure we were in check with that.
Right.
And then 2, under 1, not less than 2-inch high letters, the words would say towaway zone, and not less than 3/4 of an inch letters, unauthorized vehicles will be towed away at the owner's expense. And then 1-inch letters stating the days of the week if it's not a 24-hour prohibited parking. And then 1-inch letters with the name, address, current telephone number, the person or the company towing or removing the vehicles. And then not less than 3 feet and not more than 6 feet away from ground level must be continuously maintained throughout the property for not less than 24 hours prior to any of the tows any vehicles being towed or removed. So we just wanted to make sure we were clean on the signage part.
All right.
Everything else stayed the same.
Okay, Board, any comment before we take public comment? All right, anyone want to speak?
One question
Okay.
first.
Sorry.
Chief, we did talk about the authorized signer, and there was something in there about the authorized signer having to be on site. We were going to change that to where they wouldn't have to be on site, but they would have to be on record.
Correct. As long as there's some prompted measure to allow the property owner or their designee to say that this vehicle or vehicles need to go. But it didn't have to be on site. They just had to have some type of record that they were contacted to come get this vehicle.
The other thing I thought about was if you have a leasee that prompts the towing. So somebody doesn't own the property but lives in a house. Somebody comes and parks in the house. They need to get it towed. We should be able to allow that leasee or even a commercial leasee to be able to tow, because there's a lot of leasees around in and around the square that have signage, around their designated spots that say, if you park here, you're going to be towed. We still need to be able to allow those people. It doesn't have to come to the owner or the owner's designee agent. If that makes sense.
Yes, sir. And I think as long as there's a paper trail, there's a digital record that someone asked for this vehicle to be towed, then that gives us the ability to say at minimum it was asked to be removed, and here's the person who asked for it to be removed.
Our
rather than just somebody trolling the complex or whatever, looking for cars.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, then I would invite anyone that would like to speak for or against the towing ordinance to come forward. And if you'll introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Sure, Ellen Brewer. I appreciate y'all taking this matter up. Quick history, I was a professor at Ole Miss for about 10 years up until last year, and I heard story after story after story of this predatory towing. Now, as a mom, as a professor, you want to listen, but also people make mistakes. None of these kids are perfect. I always said, park where you're supposed to park. But the last couple of years, it has ramped up. And this past February, my son had an incident with Marcus Towing, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible and disgusting. Again, kids will be kids. We hold our boys to a high standard. He paid it, but it was awful. It was 2 a.m. We were told to go there. Then we were told no, they wouldn't open. Then we got there, nobody was there. Then I called the owner. He said, no, we're not releasing your car because you're upset. I have the police video footage. I was highly upset. I was not unreasonable. It was one of the most horrible experiences in Oxford, to be honest. It was back and forth. I continued to ask for a price list. No, we don't have a price list. We don't have to have a price list. We don't have to provide you with a price list. At one point, they had opened the gate and then they shut it again and said, you're acting crazy. They did that after I called the police. They were upset. And the police officer came, who was wonderful, at which point they closed the gate and said it's gonna stay here overnight. The signage on the gate said overnight fee, and it was scratched out, so they couldn't tell me how much it would be the next day. So finally the owner ended up calling me back, and I put him on speakerphone since the police officer was there. And he said, the police don't have any authority in this town. The police and the mayor can't do anything in this town. Now, if that's your opinion, fine. And whether that pertained to towing, then that's a different matter. What I took from that, though, is the power these tow companies think they have. And it's awful. We are a college town. I have a Facebook group for Ole Miss parents. I've had hundreds contact me, hundreds, with horrible stories like this. Their daughter having to go to an ATM at 2:30 in the morning because they only take cash. They only took our cash. They never asked for my son's ID. They never did a title check. I mean, if you want a free car, go hang out at 3 a.m. outside the tow company and tell them that's your car and give them $400, you got a car. There are no regulations, there were no policies, there's no protocol. I demanded a receipt. We do not give receipts. Yes, you will. I stood there, I said, I'm not leaving the office until I get a receipt. Well, all of our computers are off. I'm gonna have to start everything up. Sure, go ahead. I want a receipt. It was just all of that, and it's awful. It's awful. Of all the parent members that I have on my Facebook group, I have had 3, which that may not seem like enough, but I've had 3 that have reached out to me that have said, we are seriously reconsidering sending our child to Oxford because of how this presents. It's not good optics. We need to protect our children, we need to hold them to a high standard, and we need to hold businesses to a high standard. This does not look good. I have met with the lobbyist for our governor. Actually, he reached out to me, so I want to let you know, Oxford's on the radar. He's working on stuff on the state level. I hope we can get this done here at the city level. I watched last week, or 2 weeks ago, Marcus Towing tow from Walmart parking lot the pharmaceutical van that was there to deliver all of the medicines to the pharmacy. The driver's running after him. I know nobody at Walmart called and said, hey, come tow our pharmaceutical van. That didn't happen. They have a contract with them. They're bringing the pharmacy medicine. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. I don't want our reputation to be one that we see vulnerable people and we take advantage of them. I want it to be quite the opposite. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gosh, I'm so sorry. Just a take it.
Hello, my name is Sarah Tudor. I am a dual general manager for student housing communities here in Oxford, and I have been since about 2006. So I have seen different administrations, been through different policy changes. I've seen it all in the last roughly 18 years that I've been in the industry. My concern is not the regulation of the towing companies themselves, but I feel like that the towing companies we are being punished as property managers, as general managers, as private property owners for the lack of regulations that's been set for the towing companies. If there was set rates, this wouldn't be an issue. If there was mandated rates, this wouldn't be an issue. If there was, we are under contract. We set our guidelines. Hey, this is reserved parking. My residents pay for it. If they call because somebody else parks in it, you have the authority to tow them. If the vehicle is inoperable, if it's a flat tire, hood's open, jacked up on a jack, it's unsightly. We wouldn't leave it on the square. But I or an agent of mine has to call the towing company to have it removed. There's got to be an even medium for us as property managers, as private property owners, and for the residents and the citizens and the students. But perfect example. 2 weeks ago, we have a homeless person living in a vehicle on our property. Every time I'd call the police, they would come, try to check it out. The guy wasn't in there. He was hiding in the woods behind the car. The only reason that we were made aware of it is because the towing company was monitoring the premises and said, hey, something's going on. This car doesn't have a decal. They don't reside here. The tag's expired, because we provide them with a rent roll, every decal number, so they know before they get onto our property who's supposed to be there, where they're supposed to be, and where they're not supposed to be. But because of the towing company, we had somebody removed. The only way we found out who the individual was is they towed the car. Well, they're living in it, so when they wanted to go pick up their vehicle, we found out information, found out they were homeless, and they were pretty much just finding anywhere they could to park their car and live. My concern is that there's going to be a safety concern. Lark is one of our properties, and during any kind of special event, whether it's double-decker, whether it's a concert, whether it's a game, we participate in the after-hour transit, and at any given time, even my residents don't have places to park, and the parents are livid with us, because if we don't enforce towing, if we don't have these vehicles removed, they come and they park at the premises, they jump on the bus, they go to the square, they have a good time. If we don't have a way to regulate it, or one of my agents has to request it every time, there's not going to be any way for us to maintain.
But
Well,
I don't think the agent has to be there every time. One, you don't have to be there every time. Two, it's an agent, it's somebody on record. So if as a property manager, if you're calling, and you call whoever your tow company is, or if you authorize them to patrol, you're gonna be the person that's on the authorization. So that's not changing, but you'll be the authorizing person.
For each tow. So the towing company can initiate the request, but you or one of your agents has to accept and acknowledge that request to tow. And that can be electronic.
Right.
That can be via a text to say,
Okay.
Here's this car, no decal, these are situations, we're gonna tow this car.
Right.
And one of your property agents just has to confirm that, yes, you can take that car.
So even in the middle of the night, 2,
Yes.
3, 4 o'clock in the morning,
Yes.
I will have to pay somebody on-call pay to answer the phone just to authorize tows.
Yes,
Is that
or answer a
correct?
test, yes.
Alrighty, well,
You don't have to be there.
right, but you know, I mean, no one's gonna work for free, and if they're having to answer calls in the middle of the night,
But
we have to compensate
and
the
that was
pay.
my question is, if you have an authorized person, so Jason Bailey gets with ABC Towing Company, and says, this is what I want you to do, and here's your parameters, and they do it, they tow, but I'm still that authorizing agent. Do I have to call?
On every individual vehicle, you need to make a phone call, yes.
So it's either an individual vehicle or you can do a prompt of X amount of vehicles. So if this whole row is, you call in 10 at a time, but if you leave or they leave and then come back and you want more, it can't be just carte blanche, like, hey, on Saturday, you can come out here and just get any car you want.
So theoretically, then via text, electronic form, somebody has to call to initiate it to have a vehicle towed.
Or confirm if you're
confirm.
contacted by your tow company.
The tow company can initiate, you just need somebody to
Someone has
confirm.
to approve it.
Okay, because that's been our company's kickback as well, is that, you know, we've even, I mean, the towing company that we utilize can vouch that we've called and said, hey, no, you're not towing when my students are on break. Like, you're just not gonna do that. There's no way for us to notify them. You can't tow on break. You can't tow, we put a 24-hour sticker on it. We give them the opportunity, just like they boot on the square, we give them a 24-hour notice to remove the vehicle or get it operating prior to it being towed. Do they adhere to it? No, they don't. They'll walk right past it. I mean, I see it every day firsthand, and I'd invite each of y'all to come and just witness it firsthand in the office and what we deal with and how horrible it is, even down to parking for the pool. We fight this battle every single day. They park up front as if they're a future resident, or they park they'll sneak in behind somebody through the gates, park. You know, we look, they don't have a decal, so we have to either constantly walk now, checking vehicles, or we're going to have somebody on call to do it. It just seems like there has to be an even.
But the tow company can still do what you're saying that they're doing, is they're monitoring it for you. They can
Right,
still
but we
monitor
just
it
have
for
to
you.
approve each one.
Just to approve it. If he calls you and says, look, you got 3 vehicles parked up here that don't have a tag, they've been sitting here, the license plate is expired, what do you want me to do? Tow it.
So how do we get a copy of that record then if he just calls me? Do I have to then turn around and send an email and a text message, or to have some kind of documentation?
No, I mean, if I authorize it, they make, the tow company is gonna be the one that makes the notation of who that person is.
But there would have to be a phone record. To me, text is the best way to do it. There's your record, there's your electronic record.
I think you're going way into details. I think it's on, I mean, we're requiring them to have a form, right?
No, it's, as long as there's a trail, some type of digital trail, whether you wanna email it or you screenshot it and give it to the tow company, however you guys communicate. And if we had a complaint, we would have to be able to come back and say, you authorized that tow, right? To make sure there was a checks and balances.
Okay, so is there some kind of report that we need to send to ensure that we are covering our bases, or is it just a wait and see until somebody complains for y'all to pull? How are we going to track this progress? Because, I mean, we have been so diligent about it right now, trying to make sure and look in the best interest of the students, understand that they're kids. I mean, ultimately, yes, they're over 18, but it's their first time in the world, they're learning. So how do we go about tracking it to validate that it's being adhered to? What do we need to send? Do we have to CC? Like now, if something's towed on our property, y'all get an email instantly.
Correct.
So how are we going to track this to ensure? I have 2 properties and I just need to make sure that both of them are on the same page, because I can't be in 2 places at one time. And for the clarity and the understanding of the new ordinance, how do we need to enforce this? How are we going to track it, and how do I need to make sure that my staff is adhering to guidelines and following through?
So what we would require is that you would keep a record of each vehicle tow, date and time, the VIN number, make, model, license plate, and then the name of the person who authorized the tow.
So the tow report covers all of that, and it's an email form.
Yeah,
So
so
as
you're
long
good.
as all I do is can type in,
You don't have to reinvent anything on that.
and we don't have to keep it or save it,
For
or,
3 years, somebody's got to maintain.
so
the
we
record.
need to print it out, in other words, and have a file for every vehicle in
Or
case.
just save it on your computer, or the tow company should have it, because they're gonna give a receipt.
Okay. Okay, I mean, that's really it, but I just feel like that there could be a more even medium ground on this deal, besides just the property managers being penalized for it, that if there was stricter regulations set in place first with the towing companies, that this whole issue could have been avoided to begin with, because then they would have been regulated, and all of these, what people feel like are unjust or undue tows, I mean, we wouldn't have them if there was more guidelines and stipulations on the companies, just like they are about us.
Well, there are in this new ordinance.
Yeah, in the new ordinance, but I mean, it's that the property managers are being affected in the new ordinance as well,
Right.
whereas if the regulations would have been put forth for the towing companies prior to this, we wouldn't have to have this special meeting to address it. So, that's all.
All right,
Anything else?
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Chuck Ray. I am a towing operator, but I'm not here on behalf of my company. Just a couple of quick things I want to address. 20 years ago when I moved here and became a tow truck driver, the company I worked for at least did probably 10 times as much trespass tows as they do now. It's a very small amount of the business now, and we're catching a lot of flack. And some of us absolutely hate doing private property tows. You never have a happy customer. Just a couple of questions that I have, though, is, and I don't know how Ocean Springs passed an ordinance, and I'm not sure how this one would pass in its current form. Is if you haven't checked federal law, 49 U.S. Code Section 14501C clearly states that it's federal law that states any state may not enact or enforce regulation, a law, or other provision having the force and effect of law related to a price, route, or service of any motor carrier. This was taken to court in 2000 in Santa Ana, California, because Santa Ana tried to enforce or enact a similar ordinance. And the Supreme Court ruled that no, a city or a state cannot tell a towing company what they can and can't charge. And furthermore, they could not require towing companies or drivers to have permits to work within that city. So that's just a question I want to put out for you guys to maybe look into. I wasn't here to ask this as a towing professional, because whether or not we do towaways has no effect on my pay, and I'd rather not do them. I just felt that it might not be within the law for this ordinance to pass in its current form. And then the other question I had was for the chief is, as far as reporting these calls to your department, will we be able to just email you the whole invoice, or are we gonna have to call and tie up your dispatcher, you know?
We can email now, so.
Okay, so we'll be able to just email the whole thing to you, it has all the information, pictures and everything.
You can, or we just need to know like what car you got, where you got it, so if we get a call, we know where to direct them to.
I just knew, because in the ordinance it says you want the VIN and everything, and, you know, I'd hate to have to read all that off.
Yeah, no, everything
Okay.
would be digital.
All right. And the case law for that was Tocher versus Santa Ana, if you want to look it up. That's pretty much all I had, was just questioning the legality of prices that towing companies charge when they're not under city contract. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brad Goldman. I'm one of the owners of the Holcomb Law Group here, speaking against certain aspects of this ordinance on behalf of Bandit Towing and the owner of Bandit Towing, Georgia Kane. Now, to be sure, there are certain legislative things that a city council can do, but a city council and any aspect of government has to be very, very cognizant and careful when you try to set prices. All right, because generally speaking, the idea is we have the right to contract as we so choose in the United States of America. When you start setting prices for people, you interfere with market forces. Interfering with market forces tends to lead to scarcity of those same services that can be offered. All right, so there are other parts of this ordinance that interfere at different levels with contractual relationships, but starting with the idea of price controls. What the Supreme Court has said, and this is in Wolf Packing, which is an old case from 1923 about price controls. The circumstances which clothe a particular kind of business with a public interest in the sense of Munn versus Illinois, that was a case in which the government said, well, the Supreme Court said it was okay to set prices on public milk delivery, delivery of milk to places, which we don't do anymore, but that idea was there. Must be such as to create a particularly close relation between the public and those engaged in it and raise implications of an affirmative obligation on their part to be reasonable in dealing with the public. So do wronged persons, someone who is overcharged for a tow, right? Do they have any kind of remedy? Yeah, they have a remedy. I fought one of these back in 2019. A guy named John Gregson sued the Georgia Kane's father and his business on a tow, and we went in front of Judge Luther, and he said this charge was unreasonable, and Judge Luther said it was. Now, I forget the exact nature of what that charge was at the time, but I've seen the city ordinance that says city tows $200. Y'all are taking that same dollar figure and applying it in this ordinance. So what's the big distinction between a city authorized tow and a publicly, well, non-city authorized tow? Well, a city authorized tow has a guy with a badge and a gun standing there. What are the odds of a crowd forming? What are the odds of someone objecting? What are the odds of someone standing in front of or behind the vehicle to be towed with an officer of the law standing there with a badge and a gun? Low in most situations. But the driver for bandit towing has encountered mobs of people who interfere with his ability to try to tow an unlawfully parked vehicle. So when y'all pick a dollar figure, right, you're picking a dollar figure for a business that is not in the public interest. This is a private tow off of a private piece of property in a contract between a private owner and a private tow truck company. It's not clothed with a public interest. Now, in fairness, I've spent about 4 hours reading through this material. If my client wants me to do more, I will do more. Some of the arguments raised in a more modern context have to do with examining the sunk cost or investment that a business has in its operation, as well as ensuring a fair return for that business, right? Because we do have rent controls in some part of the country. We do have minimum wages, right? So we have top and bottom level ideas. But y'all are, as far as I can tell, taking the $200 number that you get in your own ordinance, and the city has every right to set its own price for its own tows, okay. But importing that into the public without examining some of the ideas of what the public faces is arbitrary and capricious, and when government takes activity that is arbitrary and capricious, it can be overturned. Oxford is roughly 26-some thousand people. How many tows happen on a weekend? Probably more during football, right? But whatever that number is, its percentage, as a percentage, it is minuscule. So you can't take this as a public interest. It's not rent generally. It's not something that is open to the public all the time. And I also want y'all to think through a little bit. What's your constituency here, right? So what you're doing is you're adding burden to businesses who are trying to vindicate real property interests. And you're acting for the benefit of people who are violating real property interests. If someone charges too much for a tow, fine, file a lawsuit. You could go to justice court. You don't even need a lawyer to do that. Tell one of our justice court judges this is unreasonable, because that standard is going to apply to whatever charge is made. It has to pass this kind of a standard of being reasonable. The ordinance itself has got some good points in it, some things that at least my client is already doing. This idea of specific authorization, I think the lady in the red who spoke articulated better than I can, but what you're doing is you're adding a cost burden to people who have a right to defend their property and are defending their property. Because right now, my client has written instructions, authorizations, to tow under specific circumstances. I think I looked at it on my phone. Y'all have one of Bandit Towing's contracts. And it lists tow under these circumstances, but not those circumstances. That is specific authorization. It's not per tow authorization. Per tow authorization is going to require someone to stay up at night. 3 years of records, that's likely fine. Insurance and licensing, that's likely fine. Required signs, sure, that makes perfect sense. People need to be aware of where they can and cannot park. 705 has to do with impounding locally. I don't think my client cares a whit about that one way or another. 706 is where you're probably going to run into trouble because you're picking a dollar figure that's just a regurgitation of something that the city has for its own tows. There's got to be more thought behind that. Government can set prices in some contexts, but you can't just import a number without looking at, well, what's the difference between a private tow and a police enforced tow? What are the investment costs that take place? Limited fee and a partial tow, that's still price fixing. Return within 45 minutes, okay, how about return immediately once they've paid cash? You shouldn't have, no one should have to wait 45 minutes. Here's the reason for cash, not a credit card or a debit card. Credit card and debit card charges can be contested and pulled back. They can be contested and pulled back. Cash cannot. My client has had multiple times, and before they instituted a cash-only policy, where someone ran a card, swiped a card, and 15, 20 minutes later, or almost immediately, they made a phone call, and that money was pulled back. Cash prevents that. Cash absolutely prevents that. A right to inspect the property in 708, that's absolutely their right under existing law. Hours of operation. You guys really want to be micromanaging businesses that are here in Oxford. Think about the market forces that apply to hours of operation. A towing an impound company only gets paid when someone pays. They have to be open to receive that payment. There are market forces at place that lean into these kinds of things. They have a program that takes photographs of every vehicle towed, like they take pictures all around the vehicle towed. It's got geolocation of when they hook up to it and geolocation of how they move. It's got the VIN number, it's got the license plate number. It sends an automatic email to the police, so if your car's missing, you think it was stolen, you call the cops and they can say, no, it's Bandit Towing if it's Bandit Towing. It's wonderful software that they have, and all that information is automatically transferred. This is not a public interest. You cannot set prices like this. There's a remedy for all of these people who are aggrieved by something like this. Go file something in justice court. And once one of our justice court judges picks a number, I think we're going to be stuck with that, but there's at least some give and take in that. My big issue is y'all are just picking a number, and you cannot operate the government in that way. Parking is very important in Oxford. Who are you going to advocate for? Are you going to advocate for the people who don't respect that it's important, or the people that do? So I speak against the ordinance, particularly the price setting that y'all are trying to do. Right. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Billy. My son is a sophomore at Ole Miss. I promised him I would not talk in front of you tonight, but here I am. I just wanted to address a couple of things that the gentleman just brought up about pricing. Ray, I don't think that the price that we decide on is so important, right? It could be 200, it could be 250, 300. I think what's important is that we consider consistent pricing. I've heard from students who have been towed or being in the process of being towed and have been told, well, if you run inside and get me some cash from your party, I'll leave your car. And while they were inside getting that $160 in cash, they came out and the car was on the wrecker, and they were told, well, now that it's on my wrecker, it's $350. You know, you can come pick it up at our lot. I've heard from residents of the city, not just students, who have parked and had their car towed with their wallet and their phone in the car and not been able to get medication out of their car. I've heard Uber drivers being towed while they were delivering food. I've talked to apartment complexes and been told our rule is 5 minutes or 5 hours. It doesn't matter. They patrol our lots, and if you're parked in an incorrect parking space, you will be towed. I asked, does that mean if I park here and I come inside to get a parking pass as I should, then I will be towed? And they said yes. So I think we need to look at rate pricing that's fair for the towing companies, right? Because I agree, it is more dangerous when you're going to pick up these cars at 2 a.m. But I also think you need to consider the safety of the students, especially the young women who are left potentially without their phone, without their purse, without their medication should they need it at 2 a.m. And I think that, you know, we need to balance that out, right? If someone is truly parked illegally, their car shouldn't be towed within a matter of 20 minutes. I heard from one mother whose Life 360 showed that her daughter pulled into a parking place at one of the apartment complexes, and 20 minutes later that car pulled into a tow lot. So that tells me that those tow companies are sitting there waiting for the children to get out of their cars, leave it for 5 minutes, and they're gonna take it off site. Another story I heard from a lady whose car was towed, excuse me, and she was asked to show up the next morning at 8 a.m. to pick up her car. She had to go to work. She got there 5 minutes before 8. They didn't show up until 8:30, which is fine. It's their right, but if you have hours posted from 8 to 10, you should be available for the pickup of your vehicle. I think pricing is also an issue and something that needs to be addressed, because I've heard, you know, in addition to rate, we're here, it's 160, you have to pay because we showed up. Well, now it's on the record, it's 300. Well, now we have it in our lot, and we have a minimum 24 hours that you have to pay for if we're holding it on our lot. To, okay, I'm here, I'm ready to pay my 375 or my 345 or 395, whatever it is, but I'm mad. And so now, because I'm mad and I'm yelling, we just upped our price by 50 or 100 or whatever they determine as a reasonable rate. I think let's get the rate, let's set the rate, let's post the rate, and let's, you know, make it known. And then just the last thing, right, there are people that park illegally. There are people that need to be towed. But I think when you see this number of people having these complaints and coming forward in frustration, then maybe we need to look at who we're towing and why we're towing, right? I think we're maybe targeting the wrong group here by towing the residents, the student residents of the complexes, you know, where they live, right? Some of them have been towed from their own spots, their own assigned spots in the parking complexes. So just, you know, kind of something to consider there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I really don't know any of what they just said about ordinance, if I'm even saying it right. My truck was towed, and I was wrong. I was at Walmart, and I might tear up because my son at the time was diagnosed maybe 3 days before with heart failure. I'm a social worker. I was dealing with a lot. I had just ran to check on my clients' chairs, and I was trying to be super social worker. I had gone down to Furniture Source to make sure that their chairs was gonna be done. It was raining. I'm also a community social worker for some of my hospice clients, so I have a 2023 Outlander. Hey Jeff, I have a 2023 Outlander, and I had left there, and I'm trying to be an example at my new job. And so we have 30 minutes for lunch, but we can use our 15 minutes, 2 15s. So I'm trying to be an example. So I set my phone to do that 30 minutes and that 15 minutes for an hour, because I want to be a new employee and an example, because I'm a social worker and I'm in administration. So I leave, I go do that, and in that time, I'm getting a phone call, and someone said, this hospice patient doesn't have money for this. And so I called my husband and I said, can I use some of this money that I'm gonna deposit and all that? And all that's rolling around in my head, and I'm trying to, so I said, instead of not knowing why I did just go Zoom and go to G&M and get that prescription, I came into Walmart and Zoomed, and I parked with here's the no parking sign, and I zoomed and I parked in front of it. And when I was working for hospice, I've done that a million times, and I just didn't get caught. And so I did that day. I jumped in, and when I taught this little girl back in junior high, to let y'all know how old my age is, I ain't gonna stay long, like the pastors say. And I parked and I jumped in and I went into Went Forest, and there was a little old man, and I was trying to help him fill out his piece of paper, because that's how us crazy social workers do. And I got my deposit. I felt like a liberated social worker, and I went back outside. My truck was running. I had a client chart on my seat. I had my purse. I had my wallet. I had other cash that was the client's and checks laying on the seat, keys, everything in my purse. And my husband yells at me about it all the time, don't do it. But I knew I was just, and I even had a little student right there that used to be my student. I said, hey, you know, we live in Oxford. Thought I was the plug. I said, hey, you know where I'm parking up here by the construction. You see somebody, you jump in my truck and move it, but it's not a parking space that I could get to. I don't know, you can look at the cameras at Walmart, because they call me the big mouth, but it was not more than 10 minutes. It might have been longer than that. By the time I got back out with my truck running, unlocked, everything on the seat, it was gone. Now, the reason I know it was still running is because my key entry that my husband told me to switch keys off my cute little key ring that my kids gave me, you have to put it up on the truck to turn the truck off. That's a little thing that I should have done. So when the young man towed my truck, he was trying to turn it off, but it was saying no key, no key, no key. So he was looking around going, how is this truck? This is the aftermath of what I was told. Why is this truck still running? So he popped I guess he was gonna let the battery, but my truck is smarter than me, than anybody. I hadn't even learned all the stuff on it. So by that time, the little girl was gonna come to move my truck, and he hooked it running. He hit the lock manually to lock it. That's the only way you can lock it, with the keys inside. He hooked it and he took off. But he didn't know that Mitsubishi got a call to my husband that the truck was being stolen. I had no way to turn off that alert. I had no way to call my husband to say, it's not the repo man. It's somebody that stole it, because we owed a car payment at the time. So I didn't know what to do. So by that time, I had to yank off my name badge, because I didn't know what I was gonna do. I had to yank off my name badge, and by this time, one of my friend's mother came up, and I said, can I use your phone? Because I did know my husband's cell number. He didn't pick up, because he was working all the way in Fulton pouring concrete. And so I called my boss. I didn't know her cell number, but I called the office and I asked for her, and I said, clock me out. I said, clock me out. I said, my truck got towed, don't talk about it, clock me out, because I don't want to interfere with my job and anything, but clock me out. I whispered it. I went back inside. I was a little irate, hands in my pocket. I said, my truck is gone. Where's my truck? That's how I said it. And they said, oh, you gotta go talk to that lady over there, the manager. And I said, excuse me, my truck is gone, and people that know me know that I'm very transparent. I said, I don't know if the repo man got it, but I need to know where my truck is. Can y'all roll back these cameras? And two people came out, a man and a woman, and she said, ma'am, I need you to calm down. I said, ma'am, I am not volatile, However, my truck is gone, and I've done everything my husband told me not to do. I parked illegally, my wallet, there's a client chart on there. I've done everything I'm not supposed to do, so I just need to know where the truck is. So she was like, I have no idea. No, he didn't tell anybody to tow your truck. I don't know. So by that time, I'm getting angrier and angrier. So I go outside because I know I'm getting a lashing. I've taken off work. I need this money. My child is waiting on me to get back and clock out so I can go to his doctor's appointment. By that time, they come back out and they say, what kind of truck was it? So by that time, I'm angry because I'm like, you're looking at the camera, you know what kind it is. We don't know who towed your truck. So I said, it's a 2023 Outlander. It was still running, blah, 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 blah. So they come back in and they said, Marquis Chevron took your truck. I said, did the repo man take it? Because Mitsubishi, I done been 3 payments behind. They still won't come get it. And they said, no, we don't know why. So by that time, my friend's mama said, let's go. So we jump in, it's wet, it's raining. I get to Marquis Chevron, hands in my pocket. I learned that to do that, to try to calm yourself down. And I walk up to it and I said, who got my truck and why you got it? There it is right there and it's still running and I ain't got no keys. And by that time, I'm walking towards my truck, and the little guy that's changing the tires said, I don't know who brought your truck over here. I don't even work here. And I said, well, why are you changing the tire? You got it like that? I'm still walking towards my truck. I get to my truck. The young man that came out that towed my truck said, get away from, y'all better lock the gate before she get the truck. I said, how am I gonna take it? I don't got no keys. I don't have no nothing. He locks the gate with me inside. Now, I might have said a bad word, Jeff. I know your dad is my pastor. I might have said a bad word because by that time, everything is coming out. I said, you got my truck? I don't know. I can't pay you. What do I owe you? I'm wrong. Just let me that's my phone. It's probably clanking. You might have pushed the button. And I said, I'm wrong, but I just need to pay you and get away from here because I'm already in trouble. So by that time, they locked the gate. I'm about to call the police on you. I said, please call them because I need them here. I need help. And by that time I heard somebody scream, let her open that gate. It's kidnapping. But I did not know that my husband had called and said, do you have my wife up there with her truck? Now my husband's been married, no will of his own, 3 times. So they associated my husband with the second wife, not the good one, the pretty one. And he said, I'm not even there. I don't know if they got your wife in her truck. He said, my wife is an African-American with a distinct voice. I hear her now. They said, sir, what kind of truck she got? He said, a white 2023 Outlander, and we can't even afford it. Do you have up there with my truck? This Tyson, that's how he talks. He said, oh, Tyson, let me go see. I just got out of my truck. That's what he's telling my husband. He walks out, he said, oh yeah, she's here, kicking up a storm. He said, well, I got the key. I'm on my way back from Fulton because they've already told me that it's been stolen because they hooked it up, it's running. I can't get to her. She can't turn off the thing off, but I've turned it off, by the way, and I can't get to her. And she got the money, she got the card. So by that time, he had opened the gate. He said, ma'am, get out of here. I said, no, you've already called the police, so let's let it play out. So the police, Jeff sent some folk out there. He's screaming to the police. He said, this woman is cursing and acting irate. And my friend's mama said, no, she ain't. Got everything on record. So by that time I said, I took pictures while I'm standing out there waiting on somebody to come get me of all these cars still lined up. And do you know what the man at Marquis Chevron said? Today's today, pay dirt. I'm finna go get another one. That's what he said. And so I'm crying and I'm talking to the policeman and I'm trying to plead with him because I said, listen, my pastor is the chief of police's son, daddy. I ain't cussing out here. I might have said a bad word, but I'm also a wife and a mother. So as bad as I want to show out and pop that little man right there, I got to keep my character and my job. That's my client right there. Anyway, I want to not stay too long, so he's defeating my character. And I said I was wrong. I told him, I need to pay you so I can get away from here. By that time, the police said, ma'am, if we try to open your door, your truck, it's going to destroy your door. I had to leave, drive all the way home, get the key. My husband has now made it home. It's my fault, but he had to stop pouring concrete. Small little business. He's angry. I know I'm gonna get him when I get home, but he didn't hit me. He handed me the key and he said, I know you got it, but please don't show out. So I go back up here and I told them, I said, the man kept telling them I did not go inside her truck. I did not lock it. It was locked before I got to it. And I said, sir, let me show you something. I hid it. You could not open it. So he said, let me help you. He took the key out. He twisted it. By that time, the young man, or the older man, went out there and he started telling the truth. He said, I did manually lock it. And I saw somebody coming, but he was angry and he wanted to get the truck away. By that time, the young lady with the blue hair and the other little lady was coming and out and handling me and talking. I was just standing there by my truck, and I was calm, and I was defeated, and I was mad, and I was sad, and I knew I had to spend the last $300 to pay them. Not only that, my truck was going off, it was malfunctioning. When I tried to get it up the hill, it threw it in park. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't get my Mitsubishi. I got it up the hill to my friend's shop. I ain't gonna call the name because she told me not to before I got here. And I threw it in park, and I said, oh, well, I'm clocked out. It's time to go live. And as I was going live, the young man that had towed my truck, because he was going to get another car, he flipped me off and started laughing. He thought it was funny. I had paid him $300. I asked for a receipt. I said, here's your money. The police were standing right there. They said, man, we can't do anything. And they said, but let me tell you this. Walmart has a contract, and they have allowed Marquis Chevron to the word they used was buzzard Walmart. So anytime they see a car parked illegally up there, they're gonna tow it. One of my friends' pastor was inside of his truck a couple of weeks before, bending down, waiting on his little wife. They hitched it up with him inside. He had to jump out and say, please let me down and let me out. They finally did. So all I'm saying is I was wrong. But now, when I turn my truck on the left, it rattles. I gotta go to Mitsubishi and figure out, and Mitsubishi told me, if there is something wrong with your truck, it's gonna void that big old pretty warranty. And I still owe $40,336.16. I looked it up before I came in here, but I ain't read none of those papers y'all talking about. So I don't know anything about this, and I know college kids, because I had one. I know we're wrong, but I'll say this and then I'll end. My husband knows Marquis Chevron. He was driving one of his work trucks, we live in Taylor, Mississippi, to my parents' farm on 315. So if you know where Taylor Green is to 315, the bearings fell off out of one of the trucks. He only charged my husband $85 to go from Grinder Switch, if anybody know where that is, back to past Taylor Green. He only charged him $85. I was standing there when he paid him cash. He asked for a receipt. He said, no, you know, Tyson, we got you. That happened 2 weeks before he charged me $300. By the time he realized who I was and all of that, they didn't even want to take the card. I said, no, take it, take your money. So I have a new phone now. I don't even know how to put it on silent. That's why, and please excuse that, but I have all the video of where my truck malfunctioned. They had to take it apart so it would run. I have the video of what they said, and I also have all the pictures of the vehicles that were there, and they got mine. And I overheard them saying, man, we thought we got a college kid's vehicle. I said, no, you got a poor black lady's vehicle that just happened to have a person that was able to help her get a truck at Mitsubishi with a husband that works like a dog, and we saved all of our money for a good enough down payment. And that's the love.
Thank you. Right, anybody else that would like to speak? You can come up and be next if you want to.
I'm a resident here. I'm also a student, but I've been a resident of Oxford my whole life.
And what's your name?
Jose.
Jose?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
I'm basically just coming to talk in support of the ordinance. I think that at the end of the day, well, you know, private business is private business. There just needs to be some common sense rules, and you know, maybe we can hash it out later. But as of right now, it's kind of getting out of control. It's a little predatory, in my opinion. I've had some personal experiences with towers. I've only ever been towed once, quite recently actually, and they were actually they were not directly, but implying, threatening, you know, that much like other people here, that if I got angry or upset or did anything like that, they would threaten to charge or raise a price. You know, I think one of the very reasonable things in the ordinance is the 24-hour period before they can even charge you for a storage fee. I think that's ridiculous that they can charge you for storage when they haven't even had to store it for more than 12 hours. For example, the vehicle that I had, I got towed at 8:34 p.m., called immediately, told me I had to come pick it up at 8. I was there at 8, still got charged an additional $45 on top of my $300 for towing. So it came out to $350. I mean, you know, like, I know a lot of these college students come here with parents' money sometimes, but not me. I've lived here my whole life. I got to work full time. I got to school full time. $350 is a blow, especially happened right around the month. Got to pay rent. You know, everyone can be familiar with that. I just really think that it's, you know, these are common sense rules. You know, so some people might be upset with it, but at the end of the day, I mean, the people that are at fault are the towing companies that acted out of hand, because there are good towing companies. You know, like I've had great experiences with some of them. Shivers Towing, I've never had a problem with them. They're great. Others, not so much. I've even had a friend recently who was towed out of their own apartment complex. Their right side tower was on the line. I understand that's illegal parking. You know, it's also a problem that can be solved easily within 5 minutes by giving them a call. You know, just asking them, maybe move your car. You live there. You know, like it's not. You know, it's not like I'm a visitor going to an apartment complex and I'm not supposed to be there. This is a, you know, a person who lives in their apartment. They got towed. They were trying to be here tonight, but couldn't make it because of work. And so, you know, their experience specifically was also with bandit towing. You know, they went up there, told them to go up there at 8 in the morning. They got there, same thing as someone else that was up here, told them to come back later around 10. You know, they came back, still a little bit of a delay. You know, they saw a cash sign, they had to go get some cash. And then, you know, eventually it all got resolved, but, you know, it's just highly inconvenient. You know, most people can't take that many hours out of the day to go and take care of that. I mean, I guess you can't even start your day without your car, right? So you have to figure out so many things in such a short amount of time, and if you don't, you get penalized for it, for, you know, not being given a reasonable amount of time. That's really all I have to say. I just think I support it, and I think a lot of people, not even just college students, people that live here in Oxford, also appreciate the fact that we're trying to get some sort of standardization here at the end of the day.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Good evening, everyone. I sent an email last night. I'm not sure if everybody got it or not.
What's
My
your
name
name?
is Jeremy Howell.
Yeah.
One of them bounced back, but I think everybody else got it. I'm not going to bore everybody that's here with reading it. So, but there's a couple of things that I think are important. One, I manage a couple of apartment complexes here, and I represent the owners, and with that, it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm keeping the property up and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. One of those properties just sold for roughly $50 million, and and so now there's a new owner in town, and he'll do what he wants, and I'll manage it the way that he wants, and I'll do my part, which is making sure that the tenants are safe and that my property is maintained well and that I'm monitoring who's there. One of the biggest ways I can do that is through towing. And so I have a contract with the local tow company. I think it has been amazing for my property because it has, one, helped me be able to know who's in the apartments. So when somebody comes to visit the property, they check in at the office, they get a pass to go in their car, they're told what to do with it and how long it's good for, and then they go on their way, and that's great. We have other passes that if the office is closed, they can use those when the office is closed, and those are good for overnight. And we've tried to make sure that all the contingencies are taken care of so that no one who follows the rules is towed. We've probably towed, out of the 3 properties that I've been involved with here in town, we've probably towed a few hundred cars, maybe a little bit more than that. Out of all of those, 1 car was towed incorrectly. I have photo evidence of every single other one, why they were towed, and I had conversations with almost every one of those people that were upset. The ones that are, obviously the ones that aren't upset, or the ones that don't take the effort to come and talk to me, go and pay, and that's the end of it. But when someone has an issue, they come and they talk to me, and we're able to look at it and explain what's going on. And so because I've been in that side of it, I think I have sympathy for what's going on with the tow truck drivers, because they're out doing a job and they're trying to fulfill the contract that they have with me, and they're put in a position where, one, people just cancel their checks, or they'll cancel the charge, they'll call it fraud, or so if it's paid with cash, they can't do that. 2, people are angry. I mean, the lady that was talking earlier, I think that we're all in that same boat. If my car got towed today, I would be frustrated. I would be irate, I'd be upset, I would be all of those things, and in truth, I probably would take that frustration out on the tow truck drivers. But the actual situation is this: those properties that have those contracts have agreed to a certain amount of terms. Walmart has this contract we were just hearing about with Marquise. Walmart has agreed to allow Marquise to tow for blah, 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 blah reasons when somebody is parked illegally on that property. When somebody comes to my property, me and my tow truck company have a partnership, right? We have agreed that these are the rules that they're going to enforce, and this is how they're going to enforce it. So the young man that was talking earlier was talking about his friend's car being towed because his tire was on the line. Well, at my property, if your tires are over the line, we're probably going to tow you. If your tire's on the line, it's probably not as big a deal. But we do that because everybody that parks after that is going to have to park on an angle. And what that's doing is that's increasing the risk of somebody getting hit. It's increasing the risk of there being damage to property and causing other problems. When I got into the contract with my tow truck company, again, we sat down and we figured out what it was that we wanted to do. It's been beneficial for both of us. I'm sure that they're out doing the job that I'm asking them to do, and because of it, they're getting paid whatever the tow rates are. But on the other end of that, I'm getting the benefit of knowing that the people that are in my residence are supposed to be there. The people who are not supposed to be there tend to not stay. They're worried about getting towed. They're worried about what happens if, and so those people don't hang out at my place. And because of it, when there's been a string of car break-ins or a string of problems during the summer times where people are going in vacant apartments, I don't have those problems because they can't park anywhere around my property without the threat of being towed. So all I would say is, yes, you have every right to vote on this the way you want to vote on it. But I would encourage you to look at it and make a determination about whether or not this bill actually, or this law actually represents a partnership between the property owners, the city, and the tow truck companies. Because we can't enjoy the city without their efforts. We are all going to end up I was actually telling this story to a friend who did not understand why this was important. If I own a home down here on the square or around the square, and I'm out enjoying the city, I need to know that when I come home, I can park in my driveway. So those homeowners sign agreements with people, with the tow truck companies. Those tow truck companies are towing people who are parking illegally on their, in front of their homes. If I'm renting out my home on Airbnb, there's going to be a problem because some random person's going to park there, and then when my Airbnb guest shows up at 2 o'clock in the morning to get into their house, they're not going to be able to park. It goes on and on. I think you guys are all smart enough to know where I'm going with all of this, but what I would suggest is that we actually table this for now or defer it for a later date until everybody can come to the table and actually put together something that's going to work for the entire community.
Thank you.
What's the issue, what's the difference now with this ordinance than what you would be doing here, except for not allowing the tow company to be the arbiter of who breaks the rules? That's your job as the property manager, correct?
Right.
Right? So you,
100%.
Hold on 1 second. So you are the property manager. You decide what rules are there, right?
Right.
You decide if you break the rules, you should be towed.
Yeah,
correct?
for sure.
And you do that every time. Everybody that's towed from your lot, you have made that decision, or do you allow the tow truck to make that decision?
The tow truck drivers make it, and here's why.
Well,
because
no,
just like my painter, just like the painter that comes in.
Here's what we're doing, is we are making you now to the enforcer of the rules that you put into place,
but
as you should be.
When I bring a painter to my property, I don't walk with him to every unit and say, I need you to paint there and there and there. I actually say, these are the apartments that need to be painted. This is what I'm looking for, and we sign an agreement, and they go in and do it.
It's not taking somebody else's property off the private property.
But it doesn't matter because that's it's my property, or I'm representing that property, and so they in fact, if I don't want that vehicle on my property, I should be able to have a representative tow it away.
And you should be able to be willing to sign your name on the contract as the person who authorized it to be towed.
Except when I'm at a football game, there needs to be a representative for me at the property, and that representative is the tow truck driver. I get photos.
We're not going to take any comment from the audience.
I get photos of every time that somebody's towed off the property. I review those photos. I'm able to call for more information if the photos aren't clear. Those same photos go to the sheriff. So the sheriff knows where that car's at, and I'm able to go, this is a justified tow.
And your photograph shows the problem, the violation in effect?
Yeah.
All right, then you would have to be able to sign off on it.
Not only does it show the fact that there's a violation, they actually take pictures of the vehicle to make sure that this is the condition of the vehicle. Sure. So unlike the lady that was talking earlier, right, when she's in Walmart and they tow her car away, there was no representation of what condition of that vehicle before they took it away. I know exactly what the condition is because I have photo representation of where it's at.
You manage the property, and what this ordinance does is allow you to manage the property.
I manage the property, and I look for people that I trust to be able to assist me with that. That's my security guards, my tow truck drivers, my painters, my cleaners, my pool caretaker, my lawn care people. Everybody that comes to my place, my vendors go into apartments and they have to be vetted by me because people live there.
That's fine. I'm not worried about a painter or anything. What I'm saying is all we're doing is having a next step, one extra level that takes the ability of any question of predatory out.
Right, but I've already done that at my properties.
No.
There's no question of predatory behavior because I'm literally in a partnership. I know exactly what they're going to tow and why. And so, again,
And
we've
now we will know.
towed hundreds of cars and only one's been towed by mistake.
And now the consumer will know.
But the
because you've
consumers
signed
know,
off.
it's posted all around my property. They have to sign every rule. So when they come to my property, all the leases have signatures that show the rules, the same rules that the tow company's enforcing. Then after they have signed the lease, they also have to sign my community policies. My community policies include all of the guest parking and all the tow process. And so then they can go there, they have to sign off there. And then over the course of the year, I've sent out 10 to date emails reminding them and their guarantors of what the tow process is and what I expect of the people who are parking on the property. When the tow truck driver tows them away, the tow truck driver is following the rules and is an authentic representation of what it is that I'm trying to do at the property.
And we're making sure that you sign and say he's following the rules.
Except, I live here. I have my family here. I want to be able to take advantage of Oxford. That's why I have chosen it, just like all of you. I cannot do that if every time someone's getting towed, I have to be present.
You don't have to be present. That's been discussed.
Security guard, quick question. Do you keep security guards on 24/7?
No.
Why not?
That's why I wonder why the towing company's security guard for everybody.
The security guards are there from the time the office closes until a few hours before the office opens.
Glad my daughter isn't there, to be honest with you. The darkest part of the night, you're gonna let them free? But anyway, we won't go into that.
No. So we have security guards from 9, we have security guards from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m.
3 to 5 darkest part of the night. But anyway, I won't go into that. I won't get into all that.
The point is that
but you've got somebody there, keep them there 2 more hours and they can sign off on the car. I'm trying to give you another option so you don't have to do it. We're trying to.
Right, but I don't understand. I check the work of my painters and my cleaners and everyone else who works for me after the fact.
But
because
you're
I trust them. One more time?
You're not the only landlord in town, though.
No, but I'm the landlord of 1,000 people here in town.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, you might be doing these things, but others aren't, so we have to have those regulations in place.
I think that's true. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Some of the regulations that are in this, some of them make sense. I don't think that there are problems with some of them. I don't think the tow truck drivers would see problems with some of them. I think that where the problem comes is when you're telling me who of the people that I employ I can trust. If the truth is, the tow truck drivers aren't doing nothing outside of what I have asked them to do. So if I'm asking the tow truck drivers to tow somebody because they're parked on the line, they're going to tow it because of that. But in reality, that's not necessary, right? It's just the rule that I put in place. So they're representing what I'm asked. If we're going to say this is what needs to happen, where that should fall isn't on the tow truck drivers, it is on the properties themselves. And what that means is there should be some regulatory stuff on the back end. I should be able to pick who's going to represent me. And if I want the tow truck driver to represent me because I've got that in writing, then that should be okay. But when something goes wrong, it should fall back to me. I should have to defend my choice to have a vehicle towed. But they're doing the job that I have asked them to do. Does that make sense? That I should be the one, because I'm the one saying what I want to happen at my property, I should be the one that's responsible for making sure it's done.
And the other concern of the ordinance too is what happens once it is towed and the process, if there hasn't been a process or regulations and people are unsafe.
Yeah.
The money that's being spent. So that's another piece of it too.
It's not that I don't agree with what you're saying. It's not even that I don't agree with what Ryan was saying earlier. the problem is that we're misplacing the onus to do the task. We know that there are shady vendors out there, whether it's towing or cleaning or any other number of things. We know that there are shady people out there. I choose not to work with those shady people. I imagine that for all of your rental homes or condos or any other thing that you guys are involved in, you're choosing not to work with somebody that you don't trust. So when I am looking at who's going to work at my property, I'm looking for people I trust. And then we come to an agreement. Once the agreement is done, you know what? I let them do it. Anyways, any other questions? I could be here all day. Okay.
Thank you,
So,
Jeremy.
so they work for you, is that what you're telling me?
The tow truck drivers?
The tow driver works for you.
The tow truck driver does, in fact.
And you're telling him
work for the
exactly
pro-
what to do.
We've laid it out in the agreement.
You're not 1099 anymore, are you?
Do what?
You're not giving him a 1099, are you? Are you
I
paid?
actually, no money is changing hands on my, I don't get anything from them and they don't get anything from me. I understand. I was here when Mayor Tannehill was reading the emails and somebody indicated that there was something different, but not with any of the 3 tow truck companies that I've worked with. I've never seen kickbacks. I've never seen that happen. But even if it was, maybe they do then have to give them a 1099. Maybe they do have to, in fact, have some sort of financial agreement. But on my side, there's no finances. We just have a contract. The contract tells the tow truck company what they can do, and it tells me what I can expect. And me and the tow truck drivers have worked on this thing for several years to make sure it's what we want it to be. I think that what we're doing is working at my properties. I think that not every single person who gets towed is happy about it, and definitely not everybody that leaves my office is happy. But they understand the policies because I've stepped through those policies with them. And they definitely know that the policies exist because those have been in existence now for 3 years, almost 4 years, and their kids have signed off on it. Anything else? I think that the idea of some regulation makes sense. I just think that when an agreement is put before you guys to actually vote on, I think it should be an agreement that everybody is represented in. I don't think it should be something that is just picked up and samples that are looked at from other municipalities. I think that it should be something that works for Oxford. And I know that that's what you guys are working for. I know that that's why you're listening to me and to everybody else who's come up here and talked. But there just needs to be some sort of agreement on what this needs to represent. There's most of the people who live with me, their parents do not live in the state. Their parents come down, they come to visit, they're going to be at the property for X number of days or X number of hours, and so that's why I make sure that they're included on those emails. Because they need to know what those policies are. By and large, even before they land and before they're on the property, their kids have already come in and picked up a parking pass and said, hey, my mom's gonna be here for a couple days, they're gonna have a rental, and so we give them a parking pass so that they're going to be able to park near their kid and they're going to I don't have a problem signing off on what is being done by my tow truck company. My issue with that process is that it requires me to pick from the vendors that I'm using ones that you think are more trustworthy than the ones I think are trustworthy.
No, actually, we're just asking you to have a representative say whoever picks it up.
Right.
we've asked them to come get that.
Right, and
You're-
why
you're
can't the
right,
tow
you're
truck
signing
driver,
off on it.
why can't the tow truck driver be that representative?
Your rules would be the same regardless of what tow company you use.
True.
Yeah,
And my
you indicated
expectations
that we were
and my-
saying that we were choosing which tow companies we thought
Oh,
were
no,
reputable.
no, that's not what I was saying. What I'm
Okay.
saying is
What were you saying?
if the tow truck drivers are also a vendor, they go through the same vendor restrictions as everyone else. They have to supply me with their insurance. They have to give me their W-9s. That contract has to be in place. So they're just like all of my other vendors. I don't send them a 1099 because we don't have a financial agreement. But everything else is in place. I trust them the same way I trust everyone else. They are representing me when they have to tow somebody away. And I then have to defend that when that person comes to my office and is angry. Like, I don't call the tow company and say, hey, bring that car back. I look at the facts and I make sure that I understand why they were towed, and then I explain that to the parent. Sometimes they accept it, sometimes they don't. But the point is that I'm doing my due diligence because I'm in a partnership with them. Like they're
And I
doing something.
hear what you're saying and appreciate it. I appreciate
Yeah.
the email that you sent us and the dialogue tonight. I think that one of the things that is being lost in translation here is I think, and I'm only speaking for myself here, not for the board, but I'm far less concerned about if who you designate as your person to okay the towing, whether you designate another employee, whether it's you, than I am about the treatment on the back end.
Okay.
I am much more concerned about the lack of publication of pricing, the lack of consistent pricing, the lack of anyone giving receipts, although we heard in our work session that one of the tow companies said we give a receipt every single time. Every email I get says they refuse to give a receipt. So if they give one every single time, then there shouldn't be a problem with that being in the ordinance. The lack of transparency, the charging for 24 hours of storage when the car has not even gotten off the tow truck yet, those things, the signage, so that people are aware. You know, we've had a lot, and look, cars deserve to be towed. I totally understand that, get that, understand that business practice. That, I mean, it has to be done. We live in a town that has about half as much parking as it needs everywhere, from apartment complexes to the downtown area to campus. So I understand it. I don't have much sympathy for people who parked in the wrong spot. Even those who have spoken tonight, it's not them getting towed that I have an issue with. If you parked illegally and your car gets towed, that's on you. I get that. I'm not, no matter who you are, or whether you're a student or a resident or any of that. It is the inconsistency in the pricing. It is the way that people are treated. It is the lack of transparency, the lack of a receipt. And I do believe that there are areas where people are being towed where the signage is not clear. And I do think it's predatory. And so those are the issues that I think started this whole conversation. And, you know, that's where I stand. But
I think customer service is necessary. And I think I agree with you that there needs to be signage everywhere. That's what I was saying earlier. There are some pieces of this law that I think make sense. I think that transparency is important. At my property, we post the prices in all of those emails I send. So every time I send an email, at the bottom of it, it says who to contact, it says their hours, and it says how much it's going to be. So this is how much a tow is, this is how much a boot fee is, this
do
is
you
how
know
much
if that's what they
storage fee.
pay when they go to pick it up?
I do, yeah.
You
But
haven't gotten
again,
any complaints from those that have been towed of saying, well, I got there and they charged me for 24 hours of storage or for...
I have had that complaint, and I totally get why that would be a concern. I'm not disagreeing with some of those things being added in there and legislating some of that consistency. What I would say is creating a framework for those things is important. the way that that framework is managed at the property level is also important. So most of what I've said tonight deals with that management of that agreement. How we legislate what we're looking at, or how we create a law that plays with those pieces of it. You know what? My property's got signage. Every entrance has a sign at it, so that everyone can see who we're towing and that we require parking permits. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. That needs to be out there. I think that making sure that the prices are consistent, I think fine. I think if that's what you're looking for is the same price across the board, I think that's fine. I don't know that I agree necessarily with that. I mean, none of us in our businesses are going to offer a service at the same price as everyone else. We're all looking to either beat that price, or we're trying to get as much money out of it as we can. So I think that within limits, I think that makes sense. That's a capitalist society. But if that's where you're wanting to do that, then fine. Come up with something that works for everyone. And that's why I was saying maybe it's not time yet to vote on this. Maybe that is.
We're not voting tonight.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know
We're not
that.
voting tonight.
I did come in a little bit late, so I apologize.
We'll take the comments that we received tonight and think through it before we vote. But I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate it. I do feel like there is predatory towing being done in our community, and that people are being treated unfairly and very unethically. And that's what we're trying to address. We're trying to address the feeling of people being taken advantage of in our community, those that live here and call it home, those that are students, those that are visiting for whatever they come for on the weekend, that kind of thing. And I feel like it's our responsibility to do that. I feel like it is our responsibility as city leaders to try to find ways that people are treated fairly and ethically. And so that's what we're giving our best shot at.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? All right. If not, the board will consider this in 2 weeks. Next on our agenda, first reading on a proposed ordinance amending the Land Development Code parking requirements. Kate?
It's appropriate to follow up to this conversation.
Do what?
Talk about parking.
That's right. Yes.
We're not proposing changing anything, we're just rewording it.
That's right. We're just
had
cleaning it up.
Yeah, we get complaints here and there, or requests for clarification for the residential parking requirements in our code, and this is gonna take what we have now and sort of put it in a bulleted format to make it easier to understand. And this is a first reading.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Kate?
I do, and this is just a math question. You know, I've got to go to the math. It's so for a 3-bedroom unit, we have two parking places for a 3-bedroom unit.
Yep, but then for every three units there's an extra visitor space.
Yeah, but so for three-bedroom units, you have a total of 7 parking places.
For a 3-bedroom unit, if you have one 3-bedroom unit, you have two parking places.
So every third unit, you have to have one guest.
Yes.
For the 3.
Yes.
So that means for three-bedroom units, have to provide a total of 7 parking places.
9 bedrooms, 7 parking places.
Yep.
So it's 7 total. For a 4-bedroom, I have to provide 3. I have to provide 1 per bedroom. Mm-hmm. So that's 16, and then I have to provide 1 more, so that's 17.
Yeah, 1 per bedroom and 1 for every
So
3 additional units.
So for a 3-bedroom unit, I have to provide a total of 7. For 3 4-bedroom units, I have to provide 17. Mm-hmm. That's a 10 parking space difference. And you think about all the 3-bedroom units we have in town, and that's where you see the parking issues.
Yeah.
Is where there's not enough visitors. To me, it ought to be
equal.
If it's 3-bedroom unit, it ought to be 3 spaces, and then the 1 more. It's too much of a differential when you know how many 3-bedroom units we have. To have that much differential, and I know it changes the parking requirement for land development. But it gets right back to, well, we just had this hour and a half conversation about towing and parking, and you even go, I was in one of the new developments, measuring a new house that people are just moving into. Half the street is developed, and they had parking issues already.
Okay, well,
And so I think that's something, just the math of it just doesn't,
Mark is correct on the parking issues in developments. I mean, I've seen in the last 5 years, more challenges with number of parking spaces. And we know, I mean, whether it's a apartment complex or it's a condominium, we know it's gonna be, the majority of it is student housing.
and you figure every bedroom's gonna have a vehicle.
yeah, okay. Well,
And,
maybe we'll make
we've
some
even talked about
changes.
this on others, it's not only them. So if you have a 3-bedroom unit, their friends are coming over to spend the night or whatever, so all of a sudden you have 6. I know they don't spend the night.
That's right.
But,
Yeah.
so that just, when I just ran the numbers real quick, it just seems such a big differential between 3-bedroom unit total parking and 4-bedroom units.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Maybe we'll bring it back, when Ben gets back, we'll bring it back to ordinance review or look at making some changes.
Okay.
Yep, sounds good, thank you. Request approval of a final plat for case 3069, JWM Development LLC for Colonnade Crossing Phase 3 for property located at 1669 Bainbridge Street, being further identified as PPIN 4510 and 4563.
Okay, so this plat was heard by the Planning Commission and recommended for approval at the April 8th meeting. The subject property is located in the Colonnade Crossing subdivision, and the plat includes one lot, Lot 12, an area for public right-of-way dedication. The applicant proposes to construct 6 multifamily buildings on the site, and the proposed lot meets the dimensional requirements of the underlying SCO suburban corridor zoning. Engineering provided comment regarding sidewalk and streets and water and sewer, which you can see in the staff report that was attached. Staff is recommending approval of the plat with 4 conditions. And John Granberry, who's the applicant's engineer, is on the line if anyone has questions for him.
Motion made to approve with conditions.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Request permission to accept the continuing disclosure for fiscal year ended September 30th as prepared by Butler Snow.
Yes, this is what they prepare for us every year and file with the appropriate places for our bond rating every year.
Any questions?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Request permission to advertise for bids for the renovation of the Oxford Conference Center Terrace. Mark?
We've been working with, excuse me, with Mike and our staff to get a renovation design package together for the conference center, and there are currently 8 planters with dead or dying trees out in the outdoor terrace, or there's sometimes, in some cases, there's holes where the trees have been removed, and our plan is to fill those in and overlay that terrace with a consistent solid surface. And we've also been looking at new benches, tables, chairs, landscape, and plaster for the fountains. The schedule is in your board pack, and we plan to have it completed before the fall. Just asking for permission.
Motion made to.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, Mark. Request permission to advertise for bids for the Whirlpool Well Number 3 water well project. John?
This is just permission for us to advertise to dig a new well down the hill from the Whirlpool tank to keep it full when we need it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? The board will consider an executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
This meeting is no longer being recorded. This